Lovely. Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Moa, and I am joined by two of my whiskey loving friends, Erin and Nicola, today. And I'm sure we'll have a lovely evening. And of course, we are going to toast to the fact that it is International Women's Day. But first of all, I thought I'd introduce myself if there's anyone who might not know who I am. My Instagram handle is quite explanatory. I am Swedish, I like whiskey, and I am a girl. So born in Sweden, moved to Edinburgh to pursue a career in professional dancing, but then whiskey kind of got a hold of me, and now I do a lot of that instead. So I started liking whiskey about 2-3 years ago when my boyfriend started liking it, and he introduced me to a lovely smoky Islay monster that I absolutely fell in love with. And then it kind of just went, I don't know if I'm going to say downhill or uphill from there. But now I'm documenting my whiskey journey through Swedish Whiskey Girl. And when Mackmyra asked me to host an evening with them, I just couldn't refuse because, of course, Swedish whiskey is something that is a little bit extra close to my heart, especially since Angela, who has the incredibly cool title of Chief Nose Officer. I mean, she's the master blender, but I would love that title. And there she is. She actually hosted a tasting at my first job, the Scotch Whisky Experience, which we'll mention a little bit more about because that's actually how we all know each other. But that's a little bit about me. When I don't drink whiskey, I like being creative, dancing, sewing, knitting at the moment, have a lot of time to do that in lockdown. And it's also great to see so many people joining us and some familiar faces. So if you have any questions throughout the evening, just want to pitch in, tell us if you're having a dram along or just want to give us some feedback, then please feel free to join in. So tonight we're going to talk a bit about women in whiskey. We're going to talk a little bit about ourselves, of course, because some people might be really curious about my guests. I haven't spoke to them, I feel like, in ages, but we did see each other last week. But it's this lockdown that just means that you're never seeing anyone anymore. So we're going to talk a bit about them, and then we're going to try a lovely whiskey that neither of these people have tried before. And I also know that one of them has never tried Swedish whiskey. So it's going to be a good evening, I think. And of course, we are going to try the autumn seasonal release from Mackmyra called Jaktlycka. So if you have that at home, feel free to dram along. But I also want to just let you know that they have another seasonal release that's just been released, or it will be released on the 10th of March, but you can pre-order it already. And I've had the pleasure of trying it, and it is something special. But enough about me. I am going to turn to my lovely guests and see, how are you guys tonight?
Good. We're excited to try the whiskey.
Lovely. Well, I'll turn to you first, Nicola, because I don't know why. I'll just start with you because the way I know you is that you're a whiskey-loving girl from England. You also love a red wine. Mm-hmm. But how would you describe yourself?
Yeah. So, hi everyone watching. My name's Nicola. As Moa said, I'm from England, from a very small village just outside of Chester. I ended up in Scotland 4 years ago now, maybe, after finishing a short career with the probation service down there. I needed a change of pace. I started to do some traveling, realized I was quite interested in tourism. So I moved up to Edinburgh to do my master's degree in heritage and cultural tourism management, because what other city in the world is more full of heritage and culture than Edinburgh? So I ended up here. And that's where I first met Erin. We did our master's degree together. I think it was maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks before I graduated, I got a job at the Scotch Whisky Experience, and that's where.
And then you met me.
And yes.
Lovely. And we'll talk a bit about more how you then got into whiskey a bit more. Mm-hmm. But we'll turn to Erin, and you're not from England. You're not from the British Isles.
No, I'm from the other side of the ocean. I grew up in Texas, but was last living in California, and working in HR, and really decided I wanted a change in my life. So took a little bit of a pause with my career and decided to travel. Absolutely fell in love with Scotland, with whiskey. and came over in 2000, and it was January of 19. Came over to go to uni to study for a master's in tourism with Nicola there, and was able. When I first moved here, I was thinking, I can get a job. This will be exciting. There's that Scotch Whisky Experience up on the Mile. Maybe I can get a job there so I can talk about whiskey, learn more about whiskey, and be able to do that while I was living here in Edinburgh. So thankfully was able to actually make that happen. Got that job with these lovely ladies here. And then once I graduated, moved up into the Highlands and was able to spend a summer working at Glendronach and Glenglassa distilleries, and just really absolutely loved it up there. Now definitely, I guess, a sucker for punishment, back in uni again, this time for brewing and distilling. So learning more about whiskey.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's so nice seeing everyone is tuning in. Kevin Blair said, "Evening, guys, and especially the ladies." So we appreciate that. And of course, it is great for me just to be able to sit down and chat to my friends about whiskey. And I think the way we kind of want to focus this International Women's Day is that saying that, there's been such a good progress made over the last, so many years. That is, nowadays, women are 1 in 3 drinkers, a study showed recently. So we're definitely coming up and representing. And I do think it's really important to see that women are out there drinking, because I've been to so many tastings where I've been the only lady and you just feel a little bit alone. I was like, where are my girls at? Because I just think it is, the whiskey community, and I think most of the whiskey community is so friendly and welcoming, and it's so nice to be a part of it. But yeah, I do enjoy drinking with my friends. So this is going to be great. And I do think you both mentioned that it's a nice place to start at the Scotch Whisky Experience, because there's so many women in the kind of higher operational side of things, in those like manager roles and CEO roles, which is a great place to be. And you really get to see a lot of people come in, and you just see how diverse the audience is. There's both women coming in, there's men coming in, there's younger people, there's older people. And they can all kind of unite over this love for whiskey, which I think is really nice. And like I said, I got into whiskey. Well, my dad really wanted me to like whiskey because he loves it. But it wasn't until I found that one whiskey that I was like, this is lovely. This is for me. That's kind of when it clicked, and then everything from there on, because I'm quite nerdy, so I like learning about whiskey. So everything I kind of learned about where the flavor came from just got me more and more fascinated, which is of course built up the knowledge and the passion I have now. But I just thought we could learn a little bit more about how you found your journey into whiskey, and was there anything that kind of got you hooked on whiskey, or was there anyone who influenced you, or was it only due to Scotch Whisky Experience, or how did you find it? Erin, do you want to start this time? Oh, sorry, Nicola, go ahead.
I'll jump in. So for me, my kind of whiskey journey, as it were, was pretty slow. It was very gradual. I was thinking back when we met a few days ago for our pre sort of tasting meeting. I was trying to think back to what my very first whiskey was, or what my first experience with whiskey was. And I kind of narrowed it down to, I believe it was a Jack Daniels and Coke at a very small local nightclub back in my hometown. That's, I think, my very first experience with any kind of whiskey. So jumping forwards a few years, then it would be when I was in Edinburgh. I lived in student halls when I was studying at Napier with a bunch of great girls, and there was a couple of them that were already into whiskey. One in particular, my Irish friend Abby. Hi Abby, if you're watching. She introduced me to hot whiskey, almost like a hot toddy, and we sort of cooked it up. I think we used Famous Grouse, I'm not entirely sure. with sort of hot water and lemon, and put it into a flask, headed up to Calton Hill because it was bonfire night to watch the fireworks. That's quite a fond memory in whiskey for me. Then there wasn't really that much. I was kind of, like Moa mentioned before, quite a big red wine fan. And then when I started at the Whisky Experience, that's when it really kind of blossomed and it grew. There is a lot of people there that are, as you can imagine, as obsessed with whiskey as I am now. The training there is incredible. We were very lucky to kind of meet lots of different people in the industry as well who would share their knowledge and share their whiskey with us. There's also quite a fun game we used to play. You girls will probably remember it as well. After work, we would head to the bar.
Like the build up to this just sounds bad, but it's actually not. It's just fun.
No, it's a fun game. A game that anyone can play, anyone can join in. After work we would head to the bar and we would play a game called Mystery Drams. So somebody would buy a whiskey at the bar, bring it back to the table. This was sort of pre-COVID times, obviously. And everybody would have a nose and maybe have a taste, have a look at the color, and you'd have to guess what the whiskey was. You could ask questions like, what year was the distillery founded? What region is this whiskey from? And things like that. And that really kind of helped solidify for me, like, my love for whiskey, that it brings people together. It's how I met a lot of my friends here in Edinburgh. It's just all round for me, whiskey. It's not just the drinking it, it's the kind of the companionship and that whole kind of culture that comes with it as well. There's Abby.
And I see you're getting Abby is here. I'm sure we all miss mystery drams. I can see John's here as well, and he loves that game. So I can't wait to, when things are safe in the world again, to go for another round of mystery drams. I'm sure there's a lot of exciting whiskey that we might have not tried at all because there's been releases this year. So and also worth mentioning, I don't know if I said it, I talk too much and then I forget what I've said, but we all kind of started at the Scotch Whisky Experience at almost the exact same time, which is quite fun. But turning over to you, Erin, how did you find getting into whiskey?
Thinking back, in my first whiskey was actually a Scotch whiskey. I was at a beer festival that had a whiskey tasting. And thinking back, I mean, it had to have been a Diageo tasting because I remember whiskeys that were different colors. So that had to have been the Johnny Walkers. And then I remember they had a map of Scotland and the different regions and different kind of flavor profiles that would come from those regions. And I mean, it must have been either Kalila or Lagavulin that I tried. I think that was probably, in my mind, it was first, but it must have been the last one. But I remember thinking, why would anybody drink this? This is awful. And I was in my young, early 20s, so didn't know what I was talking about. And it was many years later that I started trying whiskey cocktails and slowly kind of dipped my foot back into the whiskey pool. And when I came to Scotland for the first time in 2016, I was traveling around and went to my first distillery was Deanston that I went to. And I really fell in love with the stories and the heritage in all these distilleries. And through the month that I spent in Scotland, added in as many distilleries as I could. And then the next year kind of did the same thing. And I fell in love with the whiskey really when I had my first sherry cask maturation. And that was it. That was the turning point. And that was actually at Oban. It was their distillery edition. And I just saw the magic of what could happen between, the wood and the spirit, and just that unique dance that happens there. And then, just tying in all of that neat heritage, and things. I think definitely that's something that I love coming from a very young country where, if anything is, close to 100 years old, ooh, that's, ancient. And here there's things that are hundreds of years old. And it just, I don't know, speaks to me. And I just absolutely love that part of Scottish culture.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the only reason I came to Scotland to study was actually that my dad was like, go to Scotland. Scotland's nice. And I was like, looks nice. I guess I'll go. And I'm a big kind of fan of old things and apologies, vintage style, and like just walking through Edinburgh, feeling like there's a castle in the middle of the city,
Yeah.
and it still gets to me. I'm like, there's a castle there.
Yeah.
And just when we worked in Scotch Whisky Experience, being able to walk up the mile, which is this big street that leads up to the castle, if someone's never been, and then you just see it, and it's just, yeah, it is wonderful. And it's so lovely to see everyone sharing. Tamara's first whiskey was a Glengoyne 10, and
Nice.
John Drink said his first whiskey was a Grants, but he wasn't a fan. But it was Balvenie that then got him into he called it a light bulb dram, or a gateway dram, I guess, as well.
It's a good experience.
Yeah, it is.
A light bulb dram. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. It sounds a bit nicer.
Yeah.
And Andrew's first was a Glenlivet, or first single malt. But I guess it's all different ones that kind of gets people into it, which is quite interesting to hear. And I can see that our lovely brand ambassadors from Mackmyra, Richard and Micky, are also joining in. It's just lovely to see you guys. And Micky also agrees that the romanticism in whiskey is a really nice thing. And I definitely agree. I think what you said, Erin, the stories behind it and kind of just connecting to people that have their own experiences just makes it just a lovely, lovely thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of history as well, and that's what really kind of drew me into it when I started learning more about it, that it's not just the kind of the industry as a whole has a history, it's every individual distillery has its own history, its own stories, and its own people behind it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think someone actually already said, who was that? Was it David? Yeah, David is also having a dram of Jakt till Lykke, which is what we are going to try in a wee bit. I already have a dram sitting here, so I might start sipping along with you, David. And I know you two haven't tried this one yet, and we are going to do a tasting later on. I thought we'd just chat a bit about, because it is International Women's Day, just what your experience is being a woman in the industry, because of course, a lot of people say it's a man's dram. We are getting kind of that ancient, kind of dated little term away, but it is, I do think you get into certain situations where it can feel a bit different, and being a minority certainly has a special thing about it, which can be both good and bad. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Erin, do you have any specific thoughts on what it's like being a woman in this whiskey world?
Yeah, I do think that, probably all of us are quite lucky that we have entered through tourism, where there are a probably higher number of women than other parts of the business. So I think that has definitely allowed us to feel quite welcome. Really from within the industry, there hasn't been, any negativity, that I've experienced. It does seem that it's coming from, like, whenever I could be a consumer, I've definitely felt it. Going to, even down to ordering at a pub. I've, definitely had people try to tell me that, there was a whiskey that I didn't want because it was peaty, and I wouldn't like it, when in fact it wasn't even a peaty whiskey. And almost had to strong arm the bartender into giving me the whiskey I wanted. But generally, in a working capacity, it's always been very open and welcoming, and I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I think a lot of people will recognize what you're saying. And I think there's a lot of people will come across it if you're in the whiskey industry, because there's so many wonderful, wonderful people. And I really want to say that. But there's a few, and often there's not people that are within the whiskey industry, but kind of your casual drinkers who really likes whiskey. And then you have kind of this group that really, really wants to showcase what they know, and it can come across as they just want to know better than you. But I think that's the case for all genders and all ages. They just want to show you that they know better than you. But then you have some specific ones that will look at you and immediately judge you. And even though I think it's getting better, I also think it's important to say that this is still happening, and we need people to kind of speak up. Because if women are the only people saying that this is an issue, I'm tired of being treated with disrespect. And personally, I am so tired of getting sexist comments every single week on my channels. It means that I miss out on these lovely messages because I don't have the mental energy to deal with everything else that is a little bit negative for me. But just being able to have support from both men and women that together actually speak up and say, it's not really very cool to be sexist. And it's so dated. So can we just please stop with that? It's my favorite phrase from a Disney film, actually. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately because I think it just goes for all kind of online behavior at the moment. Is that if you can't say anything nice, just don't say anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the way kind of I see it at the moment. We're still getting lovely comments. Some people that are loving sharing drams with us and sharing their whiskey stories. And Adrian's here also talking about jaktlycka, which is lovely to see. And yeah, I'll turn to you, Nicola. Do you agree with kind of our experiences? Do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with both of you girls on both points. When Erin mentions about being in kind of other areas of hospitality, bars, restaurants, etc., I've had almost the exact same experience. I can be at a bar and order an Ardbeg, one of my top whiskies, and the guy will say, "Oh, you do know that's a smoky whiskey?" And I'll say, "Yes, that's why I ordered it." It's that kind of second guessing that, oh, she's female, she might not know what she's asking for, and it's frustrating. And I do think that there's a lack of kind of education that is out there that yes, everybody can enjoy whiskey. We do get a fair amount of it, of diversity in work. Where I work with lots of different females, so in a different hierarchy at work as well. Our CEO is female. The kind of issues, if you want to call them issues, that I kind of come across is mainly to do with visitors, but in a way, that kind of makes me I'm quite glad about that, because they've come to the Scotch Whisky Experience. They want to learn about whiskey, and they're greeted by me as their tour guide. Sometimes you see a little bit of a grimace that it's not my male counterpart that's standing next to me that will be leading the tour. It's me. And that just makes me work harder. I'm going to prove myself to you. I'm going to kind of teach you that anyone can enjoy whiskey. Females enjoy whiskey as well, and I'd say 9 times out of 10. I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10, I will have changed their mind, and I will have proved to them that whiskey is anybody's drink. It doesn't just have to be that old stereotype of kind of men sat by the fireplace in that velvet smoking jacket and sipping a whiskey. That it can be enjoyed in many different ways, and it's quite satisfying for me to change people's minds like that.
I'm going to say I am a bit tempted to get a velvet kind of house coat for myself and just kind of sit in our, because we have a wooden rocking chair, so I'm like, I'll just sit there. I also, because yes, we had a little chat the other day, because I know we were all a little bit nervous. Oh, I just saw that Alex is saying hello. Hi, Alex.
Hi,
Lovely to see you. And Jess is here as well. It's nice to see such a diversity on the stream, that we have both men and women in. And I think it's just a nice way to connect. We three would probably never have met if it wasn't for the Scotch Whisky Experience, and now that we're friends sharing whiskey. So it's a nice way to come together, and I'm sure a lot of people also think so, because I feel like that's kind of the general sense of it, and that everyone just wants to get out now and have a dram in person. I do think this year has been good, because we've kind of all been able to get together and have a good chat. But yes, what I also wanted to chat a bit about, and I know, Nicola, you brought this up the other day, and I thought it was a really good example of someone who doesn't necessarily go in everyone's face with supporting women, but he does it in such a lovely, lovely way that as a woman working with him, and he's a brilliant man.
Yeah.
It's one of our old colleagues, or your colleague already, or still, Ian, and he has a really, really lovely way. Yeah.
Yeah.
He works in the bar at the Scotch Whisky Experience, and he has a really brilliant way of just dealing with customers where you might sense that they might not be so convinced that his female colleagues love whiskey, but without them being sexist towards you, he just kind of invites everyone. Do you want to talk more about that? Because I thought you said it in such a lovely way the other day.
Sure. Yeah, he's brilliant at how he does it. It's very subtle. I don't think if you wouldn't notice him kind of pointing it out if you were kind of the other side of the bar. But he's very good at picking up on those kind of conversations where there might be that little bit of prejudice, that little bit of kind of male versus female kind of, oh, we don't want to ask her for a recommendation. We're going to wait till he's free and we'll ask him. He is very, very good at picking up on that. So he will head over to them and say, you know, what sort of whiskey are you after? What sort of flavor profile are you looking for? And these visitors will say, oh, like smoky whiskey or something. And, you know, I'll be stood in the polishing glasses or chatting to somebody else or kind of cleaning up behind the bar. And he'll say, oh, well, I don't really know that much about smoky whiskey, but Nicola, on the other hand, she loves smoky whiskey. She can tell you all about the different distilleries on Isla. And he'll bring me over, introduce me to them, and I'll stand it and I'll tell them everything I know about smoky whiskey and give them recommendations and things. But I mean, as everybody else who knows that works at the Whisky Experience, Ian knows everything. all of the kind of over 400 bottles of whiskey that we stock behind the bar, he can tell you a little bit about every single one of them. So it's not a case of, you know, he lacks the knowledge. That's absolutely not true, but he just wants to make a point that just because he's male and I'm female doesn't mean that we have different kind of levels of knowledge. And it's amazing kind of supporting him. I mean, he doesn't need to do it. He can continue serving those people as he wishes, but it's really great to see that they kind of get involved and get stuck in and kind of share the kind of whiskey wealth between everyone. Yeah, I've
always appreciated that because it feels like he's not trying to scream at people that like women also know this, because sometimes you don't want someone to just like speak for you. He does a really brilliant way of handing it over, and then maybe that person then will leave the Scotch Whisky Experience with the thought that, oh, and then maybe next time they meet a female in the whiskey industry, they'll know that she also knows her stuff as well.
They won't be so judgmental straight off the bat, you know.
And it's like you said, and I think Jess said it in the comments as well, that it's an amazing feeling when you've spoken to someone and you can feel that they put up walls, but then at the end of the chat, they're like, oh, wow, you really know your thing. And you're like, yes, I do. Thank you very much. But I thought before we try the whiskey, because I'm sure you're keen to try it. I've been sipping it along and I'm so sorry. I'm kind of just sitting here enjoying it by myself. But I'd love to hear if you have any maybe females in the whiskey industry or just in life that might inspire you. Erin, I know you might have someone.
Yeah, I was so lucky to be able to work up at Glendronach for a little while in 2019. The Glendronach 21, generally that is my favorite dram. That would be probably the bottle. If I had to go sit on a tropical island by myself, I would have that one with me. Rachel Berry just, has done so much in the industry. I think she's probably nearly 30 years in the industry, and a master blender. And, I really think that she is very innovative in how she is, kind of still carrying on heritage at Glendronach and at Benriach, but being able to be a bit more, creative in how she is honoring that heritage. And I think, it kind of shows with what she did just with that Benriach launch last year, and really being innovative with the blending, adding in different casks, the rum casks, port, and just really making some really amazing drams. So I just really definitely was very fortunate to be able to meet her a number of times when she came up to the distillery, and just really, look up to her.
Yeah, it's nice. I think it's nice to have someone that inspires you. I mean, man or woman, but it's that kind of thing that I mentioned earlier, that it's quite interesting to have that kind of representation, because, I mean, does gender matter really? But it is nice to have someone that you kind of recognize, you kind of mirror yourself, and you can see that if she does something amazing with whiskey, then you kind of get the confidence to do it yourself as well, which is why I think it's amazing to get really lovely messages from women all over the world and men on Instagram that's saying that I inspire them. And that's just the most amazing. And I'm like, I don't know what I've done to deserve this, but just knowing that you can do it for someone, it's really incredible.
Yeah.
And Nicola, do you have someone? I mean, you two inspire me, because it's just nice to have your powerful friends. I mean, don't mess with these two. They'll tell you about whiskey. But yeah, Nicola, I'd love to hear who inspires you.
I mean, yeah, you girls obviously, but the girls I work with at the Whisky Experience as well, women rather, I should say, women I work with alongside the Whisky Experience as well. It's the kind of place where, kind of community is everything, and we're teaching each other things sort of every day. That's not to say just the women. I mean, the guys there are great as well. Everyone kind of mucks in, it's fantastic to see. But yeah, I have to say, probably my sort of main inspiration in the industry, someone that I really look up to and admire all of the work that they've done, is Stephanie McLeod from Dewar's Master Blender. Dewar's is like one of my favorite blended whiskies, if not my favorite blended whiskey. Some of the things she's been producing quite recently is pretty impressive. The Illegal Smooth blended whiskey, one of the first to be matured in mezcal casks, is pretty unique. It's pretty out there. And Aberfeldy being one of my favorite single malts as well. She did a 15-year-old in a red wine cask, and we know I like the red wine, so combine the two in wine. It's fantastic. And I read an interview with her recently, when she said that when she kind of first started in the industry, she studied food science. She didn't really think that she liked whiskey. And it kind of grew. It was like a slow process, pretty much kind of the same way for me as well. It was quite a gradual process, and then here she is, 2019, the first female winner of Master Blender of the Year. Keeps producing some pretty fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I've listened to some tastings by her, and it's really fascinating what she does. She seems so lovely as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to continue on the Master Blender kind of path. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I am going to have to say Angela, which suits very well, considering we're talking about Mackmyra. But were you both there when they had the staff event, which is like a week after I started? I don't know. But Angela was there, and she was one of the few women who was actually representing a whiskey, because it was Meet the Blenders, and it was the first one I'd ever been to, which is this event where you get a lot of master blenders and representatives from different brands. And of course, being Swedish, I thought it was fascinating to learn about Swedish whiskey, and she was talking about one called Gruvguld, which means like mining gold. And because Mackmyra has a warehouse which is in a mine 50 meters below the surface, if I don't remember it incorrectly. So which is fascinating. And I was like, this is amazing. It's not actually that far away from where I grew up. And just talking to her and finding out what she's doing. And I think when you talk to her, you really understand that she has a passion for the whiskey, but she also wants to be innovative. And I mean, she's used green tea in maturation, and
wow,
it's quite incredible. And we're going to talk a bit more about the whiskey, which is of course what we're trying soon. So that will be interesting. But I did see we got a quite an interesting question from Richard before we start the tasting. I'm sorry, I'm just dragging this out, but soon. So is there anything that you think would like to see more or less of from brands to try and educate consumers on equality? Any thoughts on this?
I think visibility more than anything. I know a few people have seen the kind of study that was shared today. I know myself and Erin, I think you shared it as well, Noah.
Yeah, from Our Whiskey.
Our Whiskey. The visibility is pretty poor considering sort of 1 in 3 whiskey drinkers is a female. Visibility is pretty poor, and I think that is something that really helps not just ourselves who are currently in the industry, but any women, sort of young girls that are thinking, quite curious about it, thinking they might want to step into the industry as well. Being able to see that there's women at different stages of their career already in the industry kind of gives them something to aim for, rather than looking at it and thinking that's quite a male-dominated area. It might kind of put them off a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
it can be intimidating a little bit.
Visibility when it comes to kind of education, marketing, advertising, that sort of thing, I think is going to be one to watch. And I do think it is getting better. It's definitely improving. I've seen a few Mother's Day posts promoting whiskey for Mother's Day as well. I know my mum personally would probably prefer a bottle of whiskey over a bottle of gin for Mother's Day. So that's a really great thing to see as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my mum into whiskey. I haven't really managed it yet, but she did say she loved a cask strength single cask the other year.
Ooh.
I mean, I haven't seen him over a year now, but yeah, I'm working on it.
Nice.
What's your thoughts, Erin?
Yeah, I do agree with that representation, just that visibility within the industry, within advertisements. I think it was Glenmorangie did an advert. It was like late last year that was just absolutely brilliant. That it wasn't, shoving in your face that there were women included, but women were included. It just seemed like it was normal because it is normal for women to be around, to be drinking, to be living life and enjoying life. So it's just great to see that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
No, I mean, I definitely agree. Erin, you have a question here. Micky's asking what you're hoping to do with your master's in brewing and distilling.
Yeah, I haven't quite figured that out yet. I don't, I didn't come originally from a science background, so I don't know if a master blender route is, that's in my future, but I definitely do want to participate on the business side of the industry. Yeah, there's me.
I mean, it seems like you're a pro at blending, judging from that photo.
That was at Strathisla during the Spirit of Speyside during 2019. Also, that photo from there as well. But yeah, I really do love the stories, and if we can recover, hopefully we will recover in tourism for Scotch whiskey. I do love that part of the industry where I can talk to people, share that love of Scotch whiskey, and just share that amazing and heritage that is there. Because I love talking about it. I love sharing the love of whiskey, of all whiskey, not even just Scotch whiskey, but I love all of it, and want everybody to love it as well. Because, I do think, a lot of people have, these ideas that like Scotch whiskey is, it's smoky, but that's just a small percentage. And I think there is a whiskey for everyone. You just have to find it.
Dig deep. Yeah, definitely.
There's hundreds.
Yeah. But I mean, speaking of a love of whiskey, do you want to try some?
Is it time?
Yes.
It is. So yeah, please pour yourself one. I'm probably going to top up my glass because I have been sipping it. And yeah, it's kind of slowly going away. But first of all, pronunciation lesson.
Oh, yes.
Give me your best goes.
Oh, no.
What is it called?
You said it already, and it's
Mackmyra Inn.
Yeah, well done.
Oh.
Jaktlika?
Yeah, well done. I mean, we have it here, the Mackmyra Jaktlika. And Jaktlika means hunting luck. And this was released for autumn, which is, of course, a brilliant time. I think I actually found out about it the same week that my dad was like, oh, I'm going moose hunting. Wish me luck. And I was like, wish. So I, of course, said, I hope you'll have good hunting luck. Jaktlika.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Richard had just said he's being cruel to you guys. He's asked you to pronounce that word. You can see it on the screen.
Oh,
Nicola, come on, you did so well on the other one.
Scordetic?
Yeah, almost.
I know, I'm going to try and do it in Moa's accent. I'm sorry if this offends you, Moa. This might make it slightly easier for me. Oh, God. Scordeted.
Skördetid, which is quite close, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for everyone who doesn't know, Nicola's favorite pastime when we used to work together was to make fun of my accent, which is great to bring that in now.
Part of Moa's tour.
Oh, and look, Carl is joining in and saying "Hur är det?" which means "Hur är det?" How are you? But yes, let's try some whiskey. So this one here, like I said, it's the seasonal release. It's not the latest one because the latest one is available for pre-order now. The Björksav, which is has the influence of birch sap wine casks, but this one has the influence of another wine. As you can see on the photo here, there's both lingonberries and blueberries, and Mackmyra has teamed up with a winery, I guess you'd say, in Grythyttan in Sweden, which make wines from kind of what you can find locally. So they make a wine called Jakt, which is a hunting wine, and that's from those lingonberries and blueberries. And then Angela has used you can see the exact recipe on their website, but she's a chief nose officer, so she knows what she's doing, and mixing both a bit of their peated recipe, a little bit unpeated whiskey. I think they've used some Swedish oak casks. They've used these kind of seasoned casks with this hunting wine, and yeah, they use a mix of a lot of fascinating things that make up this. So yeah, feel free to have a little sip. Should we say cheers in Swedish? Do you know that already?
Skål.
Yeah, hold on. Skål, and skål to everyone at home. We'll have a little dram to International Women's Day.
Yeah.
And it is quite funny. The first time I noticed this whiskey, I got notes of what we in Sweden call prinsesstårta, which is princess cake, which is this kind of mix of sponge cake and marzipan and what's it called? You know, the custard. So it's all those things coming together. Oh, people are joining in with our skål. That's lovely to see. And all of that, those notes coming together on the nose, that was just what I thought of straight away. And now I can't really unknose it, unsmell it.
Unknose it. I like that.
But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
There was a lot of strawberry on the nose.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
And we should say
like wild berries, like forest.
Yeah.
Forest
yeah,
berries.
nice. And of course, Erin, this is your first interaction with Swedish whiskey, so we're very excited. on the behalf of Sweden, I'm excited to invite you into our world of whiskey.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be there.
And I saw that Alex was saying, where can we source the hunting wine? I'm not sure if it's available in the UK markets, but if you're very nice to me, I'll see if I can bring one back the next time I'm in Sweden.
That would be great.
I'm very, very curious to try it. There's a lot of interesting wineries around Sweden doing wine from birch sap and from berries and things like that. I think there's actually one up in Scotland that does kind of the same as well.
Really?
So yeah, and I saw the Richard is just linked to their website if you want to check it out as well.
Nice.
So yeah.
This is lovely.
It's beautiful.
I see what you mean when you reference the princess cake. That might have been something that you dropped off at the staff room one time.
Yeah, I made one for my birthday.
Yeah, and it's I see it does have that almost like spongy like sweet with the kind of forest berries coming through.
Yeah, almost like that
it's
jammy
delicious.
layer
It's
in the cake.
really good. Yeah, it's that jamminess to it, and it does have that slightly thick, not quite thick is not quite the right word, quite viscous mouthfeel to it. It's well, I like to call it, it's like a chewy whiskey.
Yeah.
So when you drink it, you kind of go, it's very tasty. I like it.
It does have a very nice mouthfeel.
I'd be interested to hear, Erin, do you think this is, if you tried this blind perhaps, what would your thoughts be on it? It is, for me, quite different to a Scotch, but similar in some ways. How do you find that kind of?
It feels like a cousin, like it's close, but it is something a little bit different there. But it does have a lot of that, the fruitiness, the kind of like dark fruits that you can find in a Scotch whiskey. There's the nutmeg, kind of pepper. But it is quite its own beast as well. Like it just...
That touch of spice for me is what's more reminiscent to kind of a Scotch whiskey. That kind of oak spice that's in the background there. That's the kind of the relation when you say about being Scotch's cousin.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I
kind of relate, like kind of conjoin the two a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The influence from the berry wine is amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's I've had the pleasure of going to the distillery and actually had a tour with Angela, which was incredible because she was launching their artificial intelligence. Here you can see us. The story behind that photo is that Angela was like, you're posing too cute. You need to do something crazy. And I mean, I think I still need to work on my crazy, but I'll get there eventually. But as you can see, the distillery is built tall because it's a gravity distillery. So they basically do everything, ship everything to the top and then work their way down, which is something that you haven't really seen anywhere else. So it's incredible because at the top they also have a rooftop bar. So if anyone's passing by Sweden, I can highly recommend going there because you can basically take the train an hour away from the capital of Stockholm. And then Micky's calling me a show off. Sorry. I was so starstruck when I met Angela the first time. She is an incredible woman. And I mean, when she does things like this, I think she makes whiskey with this kind of quirky elements. And I think someone said earlier, Mark, love how much they experiment with unusual cask maturations. He didn't even know cloudberries were a thing, but they have used cloudberry wine in their seasoning and casks as well. And I do think it is interesting to see how they're using it, but I don't think they're just using it for the sake of using it. They're using it because Angela thinks there's something it can bring to the whiskey, which I respect, because I don't want someone to just chuck it in a cask because you can do something weird with it. I want you to do it because you think there's going to be flavor coming out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have managed to do. And
am I right in saying that Mackmyra is a gravitational distillery? Is it the
that is correct.
Is awesome.
And we will probably see that soon in Scotland because I know there's a few upcoming distilleries that have the same kind of ideas. It's good to see. But so we like this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Beautiful whiskey.
Yeah. I get more after it's been on my palate, on the nose. I definitely get more of the blueberries come through a little bit more from the
there's a tiny bit like a
rare flavor. It's quite a rare tasting note in a whiskey, a blueberry. It's quite niche, but definitely sounds good in this one.
I do agree with that blueberry. Sorry, Erin, what were you saying?
There's something savory just underneath that I can't quite figure out what it is, but it's almost maybe buttery.
Interesting, because I would say it's blueberry jam on bacon.
Yeah, there you go.
That little salty kind of influence there.
I've never had
blueberry jam on bacon.
But now I feel like I need to try it because I think that sounds quite nice, actually. It might be
I think when lockdown ends, you should make some blueberry jam and bacon rolls, and we'll come
I'll
and
do some
enjoy it
baking, I
together.
promise. I'm just trying to see here people that are trying along. I mean, Micky said it's the perfect autumnal whiskey for a hip flask to take to watch the rugby. And I mean, I'm quite a big fan of rugby now, and I'd love to go to a game and just have a nice dram sitting in my hip flask. I also think this would be a great one for when I can go back to Sweden and go for little hikes in the woods. I think this is a good one to keep with you, especially if you have maybe a blueberry bun or something with you to pair with it.
Yum.
Lovely.
Or maybe a slice of princess cake, but I think that's harder to kind of get a hold bring with you.
You'll just have to make some more princess cake.
Richard is
work for me.
Richard's stealing my tasting note, and I think David gave some tasting notes as well. He said apart from the berries, he gets a bit demerara sugar and oak sawdust.
Yeah.
I agree with. I think you definitely get this oak character coming through.
Yeah.
And I know I told you girls before, but I once was at a tasting, and Angela got the question why they don't use a lot of other oak types. And Angela was like, well, I could, but to be honest, oak is kind of the best one. And she said the oak is the and everyone was like, oh yeah, okay, sure. That's fine.
I agree. Okay,
so yeah, definitely.
I do think it does remind me of autumn and the leaves turn in that orange, golden brown color. I think it's a perfect kind of outdoor whiskey. If that makes sense.
It's a hiking whiskey.
For me, some whiskeys are made for drinking inside by the fire, where you're warm, cozy, a smoky whiskey when it's horrible and raining outside. There's some whiskeys that are perfect for out and about in the fresh air. Yeah, and I think this one is. I can see myself hiking up a hill and sipping some of this from a flask. It's got that kind of has that warm, sweet feeling as well. Yeah. Good for watching this is probably going to be really niche, but good for watching a sunset.
It's a good sunset watching whiskey. I'm sure a lot of people
have that warming sweetness to it, but it just reminds me of a sunset.
So I guess I'll have to ask. A question from Cameron, of course. Nicola, is Auchentoshan still your favorite whiskey?
It's quite difficult to nail it down to one favorite whiskey. I did visit Auchentoshan Distillery. Went on a tour there with a few friends, and I think it was called the Blood Oak. I believe it's a surprise, a red wine cask whiskey, and that was a pretty tasty whiskey. I don't unfortunately have a bottle of it at home, but if Cameron wants to buy one for me, that is fine. I would accept it. Yeah.
Just casually, just dropping that in conversations. Like, if you want to buy me one, then please do.
Who can say no to whiskey?
Exactly. You can say no to whiskey. So, Erin, I'm curious, are you gonna dare to try Swedish whiskey again?
Definitely, yeah. This will be the start of a nice relationship.
I also wanted to ask you guys before I forget this again. How do you think it's kind of developed your tasting whiskey? I know, Erin, you said that one of the first whiskeys kind of got you into it was sherried whiskeys. Is it still that sherried whiskey has a special place in your heart? Or have you found that it's kind of developed or changed? I guess that's the word.
It has changed. I definitely do still gravitate towards a sherry cask whiskey. I'll definitely go for one of those. But I really do. I really appreciate at the Scotch Whisky Experience, we had some tastings where we paired smoky whiskeys with cheese. And that opened up my eyes to smoky whiskeys and really made me appreciate that kind of genre, I guess, of whiskey and understand and appreciate that. And it is, I generally do love all types of whiskeys. So I do probably have a love of whiskey over on this side of the water rather than home. I don't love bourbon very much, except for in a cocktail. But
It's okay. You can stay over here and drink our whiskey.
Please.
And actually, I saw that. I think Mark also agrees with you. He said anything Ardbeg with either Mexican or applewood cheese. And I just want to say, smoky whiskey. And I think also I've tried it with the Mackmyra Svensk Rök Amerikansk with applewood smoked cheddar. It's so good. So good. I mean,
I think we had quite, correct me if I'm wrong, girls, but I think we had a blue cheese with Glenmorangie 10, which is quite an extreme kind of contrast to the strong whiskey and the kind of light, delicate Glenmorangie. But if there's any kind of like blue cheese fans out there, grab a Glenmorangie 10 and see what it does, because that was an eye-opener to me as well. Those kind of like harsh contrasting flavors, like that was something that was really
I think Mickey will go ahead and try it, because it sounds like he really liked it. I mean, a good thing for you, Nicola, because I think I've heard you say a few times so you like wine finished whiskies, and I mean now you can add blueberry and lingonberry wine finished
absolutely
that category as well.
I mean, I have tried to source some, but it's pretty difficult. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to smuggle some back in your suitcase when you next go home for a visit.
I'll try my best. Maybe we should do a tasting where you try the wine next to the whiskey. That'd be
that would be great. Yeah,
that would be brilliant.
I had an Ardbeg Black sample from a good friend of mine, and I bought a bottle of Pinot Noir to go with it as well. It's quite interesting to see if you can. Sometimes you can't always pick out the different flavors as just like a hint or an influence, but sometimes there's quite a strong correlation between the two. I think one of the strongest for me was having the Glenmorangie Chardonnay cask with a glass of Chardonnay, and it's incredible the flavor that the wine's imparted on that whiskey. So it's always something that I'm up for, definitely trying.
It's the words of a professional drinker.
I actually have both Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso sherry in my cupboard that I still need to sit down one night and try that with different sherry cask whiskeys and kind of be able to see if I can pull those flavors out. Because in work, I've talked about them a lot and kind of talk about what each cask imparts, but I've never actually sat down with that sherry. So I'm excited to do that sometime in the future.
PX is lovely. And I mean, I can't wait until we can all meet again, because I'm definitely having you girls over and we're going to try some of the other Mackmyras I have, because I'm thinking if I can get a hold of some Barsap wine, maybe some of this hunting wine, and then I also have one which is PX and mulled wine cask finish. So I'm sure
really
tastings.
Wow, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, but I mean,
mystery drams.
Mystery drams, definitely. That will be tricky to guess. But I mean, this has been such a lovely evening, and I'm so glad we've had so many people join us. It's been, I mean, I really enjoyed this, and I can't think of a better way to spend International Women's Day, just talking to some really good friends about whiskey and sharing it with people as well as we can in these times. Do you have anything you'd like to add before we kind of just say goodnight?
No, I mean, just this is great. I mean, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this. Not all tonight, no. But no, this has been so great to chat to you guys. Obviously, during the lockdown situation, we don't get to drink whiskey together in a pub, but to do it virtually is just as fun.
Yeah, I think it's great, and it's given me an opportunity to be able to try something new that is gonna be something new and exciting for me to continue on with. I'm excited to try more.
Lovely. And I saw we actually just got a question from the Whiskey Dictionary. Questions for the host. If I missed it, what Mackmyra should I start with, and what's your favorite? I mean, Erin just has one. I think she can say she's only tried one.
Great one to start with.
Nicola, I don't know if you have a favorite one. I don't know if you remember the other ones.
Pronounce it again. Yaktlika.
Lovely.
This is definitely my top Mackmyra now. It's been a while since I tried the others, but I enjoyed those as well. But for sure, this one,
Yeah, lovely. No, I'm saying I really enjoy the jaktlycka of I'm always so fascinated by the seasonal releases because they're always fun to keep an eye out for. I absolutely love the Brooks whiskey if you like a fruity whiskey. It's also one of the more affordable ones if you just want to dip your toe in the water or dip your toe in the whiskey, I guess. Or my personal favorites, I would probably say the ones that have been influenced by Clydeberry wine, I'm a big fan of, but I would also say this jaktlycka is absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
So great question, and I hope that answers the question. If there's any other ones, please feel free to message me or, of course, the Mackmyra team, and we'd be happy to respond to them on our social channels. But thank you so much, girls or ladies, for joining me, and thanks for everyone who's been watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this little chat, and I hope to see you soon again. So here's a little slanjava and skål to International Women's Day. Slanjava. Skål.
Slanjava.
Cheers.
Cheers.